Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have what I like to do every month, which is kind of like either a film or media wrap-up. Today I'm including all the media I consumed, so I have some books and some series as well. For January I did just films, but I thought I'd implement some new things today. So let's jump right in. Okay, so I'm going to start off with books because that'll be the shortest segment of this video. I only read 2 books this month, but they were quite impactful, and I think I rated them. I think I rated Half His Age 4 stars and Confessions of a Mask 5, so I'm quite happy with this. But let's start off with Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy. I actually got to go to one of her talks, and then I got this signed copy. It was so amazing to see her in person. I just can't even put into words how amazing of a human being she is. Just the way she thinks, she's so introspective, and she just really honestly gets the human experience, and I think that definitely came through in this book. This book is about a 17-year-old girl called Waldo. She's currently in school. She's trying to find out things about herself. You know, she's working through different addictions and her sexuality, and she has a very weird relationship with her mother. Like, her mother is obsessed with men, and she doesn't feel fulfilled unless she has a relationship with men. So I think she kind of gets affected by how her mom processes relationships and how she views men, and she kind of develops that on her own. But she ends up falling in love and having a really intimate relationship with her, I think it was her English teacher, and then it kind of spirals down from there. He's married, he has kids, yet she's like, oh, well, it's fine, you know, I can just be there for you on the side, like, I love you, we can make this work. And then he ends up, actually, I'm not gonna spoil it for you guys, but it's a really good book, and it's so messy in the best way possible. It just shows how messy human beings can be and how normal that is, and how we shouldn't feel bad about that, because we have to be messy to be clean, if that makes sense. We have to go through the mess, we have to live in the mess in order to tidy ourselves up and to tidy our environments up. And I think this just showed how vulnerable and raw certain problems can be, and being a teenage girl can be. So I would definitely recommend this book. This was a great experience, and I feel like it really heard me in a way. And then, wow, Confessions of a Mask by Yukio Yoshima. This is my first Yukio Yoshima read, and I'm not disappointed. I rated this 5 stars. Let me read you one quote, because I have been underlining books, and I'm not one to underline books, but I'm trying to get over this keeping books perfect. I think they should be lived in, so I've started underlining. But let me read you this quote. I have already described how during my childhood I was weighed down by the sense of uneasiness at the thought of becoming an adult, and my feeling of growing up continued to be accompanied by a strange and piercing unrest. So this follows a young boy during the time just after the Second World War, and he's kind of going through the sense of the world after, you know, the wars just happened in Japan, and everyone's, you know, kind of settling down again. But his main problem that he suffers from is his sexuality. And obviously back in the day, homosexuality was really frowned upon. If there were homosexuals, it was kept a secret, and you could not tell anyone. You know, man and woman, they had to be in marriage, and that was it. So he's at school, he's within his classmates, and he starts to kind of develop this sense of jealousy, but it's also a crush towards his classmate Omi, and he's just figuring out his relationship to his body and his sexuality, and he's hearing his peers talk about women, yet he doesn't get the sense of arousal and desire like all the boys around him. So he starts to really doubt himself and if he's normal and why he feels this way. And then he does end up getting in a relationship with a girl, Sonoko, and yes, he loves her and they have a relationship, but he still doesn't feel that utmost desire for her like everyone else describes their relationships to be. So it's really just working through his internal worlds, his problems, the state of the world that he's living in. And I just think the way he views his mind, his thoughts, the world, his peers, everything around him is just worded in such a beautiful way. And it's the kind of, this reminded me why I read, because to read a book, it's reading something that puts into perspective something you didn't even know you felt, or that you felt you just couldn't put into words, and seeing that just clarifies everything. And I had several moments while reading this book of that feeling, because the way Yukio just phrases stuff is like, wow, you get it, like, oh my god. And yeah, sometimes I just had to like take a break and be like, whoa, what did I just read? That was incredible. So I love when I feel that way about a book. So 5-star read, I really recommend this. So I definitely want to get into more of his literature. And I also need to read I'm Glad My Mom Died, the non-fiction book by Jeanette McCurdy. I also didn't mention this was her first non-fiction book, and she did a damn good job. So that is those are the books I've read for February so far. Okay, next I've been watching one series, one anime, Jujutsu Kaisen JJK. If you aren't onto JJK, please, I beg. It is incredible and you are missing out if you're not. It follows a schoolboy, Yuji Itadori, where one day his classmates get attacked by these curses. The anime follows these cursed objects and creatures, and they live in a world of cursed things basically, and he ends up eating one of the cursed objects, which is a finger, and develops some abilities, which you'll go find out if you watch it. But just the fight scenes, the humor, the characters, everything about this anime is so cool, and I am so engrossed in it. I just finished season 1, so I'm about to start season 2, and then season 3 is currently coming out. So I'm trying to catch up till I can get to the point of the episodes coming out each week. But that is my anime of the month, and I definitely recommend to go watch that. Now moving on to my favorite portion, we're going to be talking about the movies I watched in February. I watched 11 in total. And the last video I made of all the films I watched, I just said what I watched, but today I'm going to be actually rating them all. So starting from the lowest rated film to the best film I watched in the month of February. So starting off, I watched Gravity, which is a Sandra Bullock film. It's about space. It's about this Dr. Ryan Stone that is up working in space, and it's quite simple yet very effective the whole time. Really, they're in space, and it just kind of follows, the relationship between the different astronauts, and they're out in space, they're working, and then suddenly they get hit by, I think it's like these shards, like a kind of meteoroid shower, and then it kind of throws everything out of place. Their ship is getting wrecked. One of the astronauts dies because he's got it right through his head. And then she kind of has to find her way. She gets separated by the other guy that she's quite close with, and then he ends up dying, and she's hallucinating, and she gets to the point where she finally gets into a part of the shuttle that's working. She can get to Earth, but then I think it's like the engine is out of fuel. She can't get home anymore, and she kind of just accepts defeat and decides to kill herself. But then she hallucinates. So it was all a dream. It was all a hallucination. And then it's just really this pivotal moment of gaining the momentum to keep on living. And I think that in a film is just really beautiful to see. And she ended up she ended up doing it. She made it home. But yeah, it was really simple. It was only an hour and a half, but I love a good space film, but there's nothing too impactful, so that's only why it's at the bottom. Next, I watched Frances Ha, which is a film featuring Greta Gerwig. I'd never actually seen her acting before. I'd just seen like her films that she directed. But it was about this relationship between these two roommates. Frances, she's trying to make her way. She's a dancer. She claims to be a dancer, but she's not really making it all that far in the field. And then her roommate, they have a really close, intimate bond, like a really intimate female friendship. They're like each other's platonic soulmates, yet her roommate finds a boyfriend and she ends up moving out. And then it's just about following Frances through her messy life. You know, she has to find a new flat, she has to meet new people, she has to make something herself. And you kind of just follow her through all her struggles, and she's just so messy. Her phrase is, "I'm not messy, I'm busy." But again, just that messiness and raw human emotion and connection that I think should be featured in more media, because it just makes you feel so seen. But there wasn't that impactful of an ending or moment. I just think it was really nice to watch and kind of follow Frances through her life. Okay, next on the list we have Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. This is a Studio Ghibli film. This is my first time watching it. Basically, after a global war, the seaside kingdom known as the Valley of the Wind remains one of the strongholds on Earth, untouched by a poisonous jungle and the powerful insects that guard it. And basically, our princess ends up connecting with the insects, yet everyone's trying to kill them. And it's basically kind of like a Pocahontas type vibe in a way, but this was so beautiful. And oh my god, the soundtrack, this was made in like 19 something, but the music was so good, and I've been listening to the soundtrack non-stop because it's just so vibey. And yeah, it just followed the fight scenes really well and her mission. But Studio Ghibli films for me aren't so much about the plot, but the visual entertainment of it. Like, it's just this story you follow through the visuals, and it did that for me once again. So that was a very good film. It might be one of my favorite Studio Ghibli films, but for me, nothing's ever topping Ponyo. Next, we have The Moment, the Charlie XCX film, documentary, mockumentary, whatever it is. I think it's cool that it doesn't have a certain classification. It's like some of it happened, but none of it did. It's a film about Charlie. She stars in it. It's messy. It's real. It's raw. It's kind of unauthentic, but authentic at the same time. I actually really enjoyed this film. I thought it was depicted perfectly. I think it was made to show the messiness of the pop star industry and the music industry, even the filmmaking industry, because the whole point was them making like a concert film, and just these people who think they're important, who claim to be important, but actually don't really know what they're doing. Yet the ones who know what they're doing get sidetracked because, you know, it's all about this person. And it's just like, it really shows the raw, like, insert into the industry. And I think it was depicted perfectly. I don't care what anyone says. They're like, oh, I didn't really get it. I think that's the whole point, is that you're not supposed to get it, because it's about Charlie and she needs to be the only one that gets it. But I thought this was done so well. At the start, I thought there was going to be like a massive rave at the end. The rave was kind of at the start, but yeah, I really liked it. Next, I watched Lost in Translation. This is a film by Sofia Coppola, I think. Yes, I think so. It's about two lost souls visiting Tokyo. We have this like actor, this guy who's doing shoots, you know, he's a rich man, he's there to get paid $2 million, I think. And then we have the wife of a photographer who's there for her husband's work. She's trying to find her way. And they end up meeting at the hotel. She kind of falls out of love with her husband. He kind of falls out of love with his wife. They end up having some intimate moments together. But I think this film felt a bit bland, but I think that was supposed to be how it was supposed to feel, because their lives were bland. And for that, I think it was a very good depiction of how it feels to be lost in this life. don't know what to do, you don't know who you're surrounded by, you don't know if you're connecting the way you should or what you're doing. And I think it's just really beautiful to see these two people connect in a way, and I have nothing more to say about that. Next we have a classic. We have When Harry Met Sally, and I never actually watched this, but it's the concept of sex always gets in the way of female and male friendships, and Sally believes this to be very wrong, yet Harry believes this to be very true. They meet on a road trip and then they part ways, and then years later they end up crossing paths again, and then they part ways, and then years later they end up crossing paths again, and then they part ways, and then each time they kind of get to know each other more and they find it weird, and then they develop a really close friendship after Harry gets divorced because he needs that support. She's trying to find the love of her life, and it's just kind of messy but also kind of being there for each other. And I'm gonna wait for this ambulance to go. The only annoying thing about living right next to the street in the middle of the city. Anyways, but then they ended up kissing, and then it kind of threw out their friendship, but then they kind of realized they're made for each other. And all throughout the film, we have these old couples kind of getting interviewed, and I think that is such a beautiful touch to this movie and unique aspect. But this was just really feel good. I watched this at my uni's film society for Valentine's week, and yeah, if you like rom-com that isn't too in-your-face romance, I would definitely watch this. Okay, and next in cinema I saw No Country for Old Men. It's basically, we have our main character Llewellyn, who stumbles across some dead bodies, $2 million and a board of heroin in a Texas desert, and it basically follows him trying to figure out a plan. He needs to hide this money. He's left his wife so he can go hide it, and then all along this other guy is after him because of the money, and there ends up being a secret tracker in the money. So wherever he'd stop, whatever motel he'd go to, wherever he'd go, he'd always get followed, because not until later on in the movie he realizes there's a tracker. But this was just so good. He also ended up dying, which was kind of crazy. I did not see that coming. But then the sheriff goes to figure out the whole crime case. But I've never really watched a Western film that evoked so much emotion before. I rated this 5 stars because I was like, wow, this... I didn't expect to feel any emotion from this, because I just thought it was going to be guns and drugs and money. But no, the way that, the dialogue is, the cinematography, just everything about this is really amazing. So I definitely recommend to go watch No Country for Old Men. Next, I don't know if I should be proud or ashamed, but I finally watched The Godfather because it was streaming in cinemas. And everyone has this taboo concept of ugh, you can't watch The Godfather, who do you think you are? Hello, it's amazing. I finished the film and I was like, what the fuck are people talking about? Why is this so frowned upon? I thought this was great. It's all about the Italian mafia. I don't really know how to describe the plot besides the Italian mafia. There's just so much going on. I think you just need to go watch it for yourself. But the characters, the dialogue, what happens, the cinematography, all of it was great. I rate this 4.5 stars. But yeah, and I'm gonna watch the second one and hope that's good. It was a little bit stretched out because it was 3 hours, but I think those 3 hours were very well needed. But yeah, not much to say, but go watch The Godfather. Okay, and then on to our last 3. I rated all these 5 stars. First we have La La Land. Oh my god, this is so good. I don't know how I went this long without watching La La Land, but we have 2 struggling artists, we have a musician, and we have an actress, and they keep crossing paths, and then they're trying to help each other out, accomplish their goals. We have a working waitress, and he's trying to make his way as a musician, and then they end up helping each other, and then they end up falling in love. It's a beautiful, beautiful love story. She tries to be, I think at the start she was with another man, but it was just he just didn't get her whatsoever, and they just got each other so much, and it was just beautiful. And there was this whole concept of the color theory. It's like, I think it was like red and blue are their colors, but when they're together they merge and create purple. And then I think when there were the scenes where they were like really upset with each other, it would be a shade of green in the background. But the ending was quite sad. They didn't end up together in a devastating way, but I feel like it was also perfect at the same time. I think it needed to happen. I think it's just that La La Land ending that it needed to have. But Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling, they're amazing actors. So this was truly 5 out of 5. I already get that sense of nostalgia where I want to rewatch a film because it was like, I just need to experience that again. Next we have 1917, which was so incredible. It was at the height of the First World War. 2 young British soldiers must cross enemy territory and deliver a message that will stop a deadly attack on hundreds of soldiers. So they're on a mission. They're going through caves, through landmines, through trenches. They're getting caught on barbed wire, you know, they're going through tunnels that have rats. It's just, it makes you feel like you're in the war. And I think this has like a one-shot concept, like you just follow them the whole journey. And it's almost shot on one shot, I think, but there were a couple cutscenes, obviously. But yeah, it was so good. And one of the soldiers sadly ends up dying, but the other soldier ends up trying to gain this motivation, and you just see his will. Just, he's like, I need to do this for my friend. There is points where he almost gives up, but and in the ending he ends up meeting the dead soldier's brother and telling him what happens, and he ends up delivering the message. And oh, it's just, I can't even describe how emotional this made me, but not in like a sad way. I just finished the film and I felt like I needed to emotionally release something, and for that it gets 5 stars. It was so beautiful, so cinematic, and I definitely recommend to go watch this in cinemas if you can. Lastly, we have my favorite film of February, which was Do the Right Thing. We are basically experiencing days in a Brooklyn neighborhood. We have a pizzeria owned by an Italian called Sal. We have all of our Italian workers. We have Latinos, and then we have Black people that, you know, go and like they give the Italian restaurant most of their business until one day one boy is like, why don't you have any Black idols on your wall? Why is it all just Italian Americans? And then things start to get intense because they think it's wrong for them not to have any Black men or people on their wall of fame, and things get tense. You know, it's a hot summer's day, people are kind of losing it, the heat is getting to them, they're angry, they just want to pick fights. Yeah, and then the symbol of racism you kind of see between the different divides of people, and then they end up like completely breaking down the Italian restaurant. But it kind of just follows these different lives, and just the way it's filmed made me feel like I was hot from the hot summer's day. Like I could feel the sweat coming off these characters, and it was just so cinematic. The music was so good, and it just had such a strong sense of each culture, and it just all worked so well together. You know, so hip-hop and dancey at the start, which was really fun, but the main thing is that it just evoked such an important message of racial symbolism. And I think I watched this for Black History Month, but I would definitely recommend to go watch Do the Right Thing. Yeah, that is all the media I consumed in February, mostly movies as always. Maybe next month I'll have more books and I can do a more bookish review. But if you liked this video, I do try to do one of these each month, and I do a bunch of book reviews. I talk about a bunch of things, so please go check my channel out and support a small creator. But thank you for giving me your time, and I will see you in my next video.